Week 11 of the college football season is here. November is in full swing. First college football playoff rankings have been released. We are getting really close, exactly 1 month away from Selection Sunday. It will be here before you know it. But first, we have a pair of massive SEC matchups to talk about this weekend, taking place in Oxford and Baton Rouge. We're also going to touch on Texas, Colorado, the ATB Indiana Hoosiers, and much, much more. And, you know, we have you covered with potential outright upset alerts, best bets, and we've been absolutely killing it. Lance mentioned on last episode when we were live on Tuesday night. I'm 16-8 against the spread the last 3 weeks. Lance, what are you again?
10-6-1 last 2 weeks.
10-6-1. So we're on a roll. And as always, we're presented by Home Field Apparel. ATB15 is the promo code at checkout to get you 15% off of your order. Head to homefieldapparel.com and use that right now. First, I want to talk about something real quick before we get into the games. I wanted to cover it Tuesday night. We didn't, we're just talking about the playoff rankings a little bit, but it's something I want to talk about for quite a while now. And that is strength of schedule and how it has been calculated. Let me ask you a couple questions here. What's more impressive in your mind? Winning at night against LSU or beating Western Kentucky at home?
Winning at night against LSU.
Okay. How about winning on the road at Michigan State or beating Buffalo at home?
Winning on the road at Michigan State.
Okay. Last one. Here's an interesting one here. USC in the Coliseum or Pittsburgh at home?
USC in the Coliseum.
Okay. You chose all the right answers.
Okay.
The metric that we have been looking at, we're guilty of it too. Everybody's looking at it. The ESPN strength of schedule metric. Now, I'm not going to go in on the Hoosiers again. We've talked about that ad nauseum. We'll probably continue talking about it, but not right now. I'm going to talk about the BYU Cougars, okay?
Okay.
If you look at Kelly Ford's power ratings, which we have a huge amount of respect for at K4 Ratings on X, according to his power ratings, BYU's 7 FBS opponents average a power ranking of 53. So they were ranked 53rd out of 134 teams. Miami, 55. Okay. That's, again, we're talking about, those two teams are undefeated, which is why I compared them. They were 5 spots ahead of BYU in the rankings. Yet, according to power ratings, they've played a weaker schedule. You want to look at a team like Tennessee? Yeah, they got 1 loss, so we're going to compare them to a 1-loss team, right? Their average is 45, okay, as far as ranking. So now, obviously, they play in the SEC. It's much, much tougher. Again, they have a loss, so they're going to be lower. But, hey, how about who else is ranked around them? Who's ranked right ahead of Tennessee in the college football playoff rankings?
Penn State.
Penn State, right? Their average power rating of FBS opponents is 54. Okay, just saying what's right in between BYU and Miami compared to 45 of Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee's played a much tougher schedule. I don't think anyone would really argue that, right? Let's compare number 2 and number 3. Okay, this is where it gets good, right? Yeah. Georgia, their combined average of FBS opponent power rating is 27th, ranked 27th in the country, which, again, they have the number 1 strength of schedule on ESPN. Okay, so we'll give them that. Ohio State jumped them. No, you didn't jump them in the polls, but they're ahead of them in the polls.
Right.
At number 2. And I just mentioned to you what Penn State and Tennessee and Miami and all those. Ohio State, their average is 58.
Yeah.
Worse than Miami.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right. And for those out there curious, I'll go as far to compare even Notre Dame and Alabama, 2 of our teams here. And I will be the first to harp on the fact that Notre Dame hasn't played anybody, and I'm not really high on Notre Dame. It is what it is. Alabama, they've yet to play their yearly FCS team. They got one, coming up in a couple of weeks against Mercer. They got 8 games against FBS teams. Their average power ranking is 36. Okay, so just out of all the teams we've talked about, second to Georgia, a little better than Tennessee. Notre Dame, they never play FCS teams. We just talked about Ohio State, ranked 58th in average power ranking. Notre Dame is 65.
Wow.
65.
Okay.
Which, again, Notre Dame is ranked right ahead of Alabama in the polls. So does this not seem like a better way to judge strength of schedule?
Does to me.
Just throwing it out there.
It's definitely better than just looking at someone's win-loss record. Yeah. No, I mean, I just think that, I mean, I've been guilty of it as well, just pulling up strength of schedule for, someone on ESPN and just thinking almost that that's just the letter of the law of strength of schedule. But they absolutely should take into an account what someone's rated. But again, man, it's at some point common sense. You can look at certain teams like early on, like we were talking about Indiana's like non-conference schedule. That's a joke. But so is Ohio State's. Ohio State's non-conference schedule, the 3 G5 teams that they played, is a joke. You can look at Georgia's schedule and see that they played a team that's as good. I know Clemson just lost to Louisville, but still, in the non-conference, they played Clemson. That's a lot different than playing some G5 school or whatever. Mm-hmm. And sorry, guys, Nelly the dog in the background is having a big time right now. And it's when you challenge yourself in the non-conference like that, and you see like a Georgia playing Clemson, Georgia's playing at Texas, Georgia's playing at Alabama. That's obviously, I don't care what something's rated or what something's ranking or what someone's record is. Playing on the road in Austin, on the road in Tuscaloosa, neutral field with Clemson is significantly tougher than playing even a really good team on your home field. All of those games, that's where you got to throw in some common sense at some point and just quit throwing out, well, so-and-so's strength of schedule is ranked this and so-and-so's is ranked that. Like, I don't care. When I looked at those games and watched those games played on the field, and I can see how good Texas is, and I know how hard it is to beat Texas at Texas and how hard it is to beat a Penn State at a Penn State or Oregon at an Oregon. Like, we can keep going on with teams. Like, that's when, use common sense in those situations.
Right. All right, let's get to our ATB marquee matchups. We're going to kick off here with a 3:30 game Eastern in Oxford, Mississippi, where Georgia's taking on Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming into the game at 2.5-point underdogs. So far, underdogs in the SEC conference games, 29-12-1 against the spread so far this season. In his career as a head coach, Kirby Smart, 30-3 straight up as a road favorite. He's lost to Alabama, lost to LSU, lost to Auburn. He's coached 14 career games where the spread is 4 or less on either side. He's 10-4 against the spread. I'll go ahead and start us off here. It's no secret, Ole Miss needs this game, right? They need it for the season to continue, basically. It's an elimination game for them, where Georgia, they can still make the college football playoff with a loss, okay?
Yep.
So I don't know. I know, the coaches and everybody want to say that, we don't pay attention to the noise outside the locker room. Well, 20-year-olds are 20-year-olds. They're going to get online. They're going to be on Twitter. They're going to see stuff. Like, it is what it is. I don't know, how much that factors into kind of just a player's mindset. I'm not in their mind, but
coaches say that, and as soon as the game ends, Kirby Smart's running around in Austin, Texas, saying, "Your network, nobody believed in us. Every one of y'all picked Texas to beat us." They listen to it. They just say before the games that they don't listen to it, and then after the games, when they win, they have their emotional outbursts like that, and they obviously do listen to it. So you're right.
Yeah. On Georgia, they had a good second half against Bama and a good first half of the Texas game.
Mm-hmm.
What else can you point to with them?
Second half against Clemson. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, second half against Clemson, second half against Bama, and first half against Texas. Other than that, this is most.
They put together 6 quarters of solid football this year.
Yes. Other than that, Georgia has looked very mortal.
Yeah, and Ole Miss, on the contrary, they've trailed for a grand total of 2 minutes this season. Obviously, they lost to LSU in overtime.
Hang on, I want to stop right there for a second.
Oh no. I get it
wrong. I want y'all to hear that again. Ole Miss has trailed for a total of 2 minutes this entire season. Think about that.
Yeah, and if you look at the power ratings, I mean, they would just they're right there with Georgia as far as metrics go and everything. I've got major questions about the Georgia secondary.
Yep.
Obviously, we saw what Alabama did to them earlier this year. We saw before he got hurt last week, even DJ Lagway finding open guys in the secondary for touchdowns. Well, touchdown. And I think that, again, it's going to come down to a lot of Kirby Smart versus Lane Kiffin. I think everybody knows where you should go in that situation. But Ole Miss is an extremely talented team. I mean, they're number 2 in the country against the run on the defensive side. You talked earlier about, before that Bama game, if you get pressure on Carson Beck right in his face, and to really any quarterback, I mean, Jackson Dart is susceptible to this
especially
too.
Pocket passers. So, which both these guys are, and they're just different. It just affects them, and it did for the first half of that Alabama-Georgia game. And something's just not right with Carson Beck. And Ole Miss has 6 defenders with at least 20 pressures. All right. They're ranked number 1 in the Havoc rankings. Yeah, they're number 1 in the country in sacks and tackles for a loss.
Exactly.
Talked about that last week going into the Arkansas game. And they had double-digit 13 tackles for a loss and 8 sacks.
Yeah.
In one game.
Yeah.
Most teams put that up in 3 games.
Yeah. And on the other side of the ball, UGA, they might be able to just dominate that Ole Miss offensive line, it's probably their weakest. I got questions about Ole Miss secondary too, but the Ole Miss offensive line is just a little suspect in my eyes.
That's it, man. That is the matchup in this game, because let's start there. As far as when you look at the metrics of these teams, there's probably a lot of people, because Ole Miss hasn't played in a really big game since the LSU game a few weeks ago. And obviously Georgia everybody's following along with Georgia. They played at Texas and they just played in the cocktail party. So you would think when you think of an Ole Miss team and a Kirby Smart Georgia team, you're going to think Georgia dominant defensively, Ole Miss dominant offensively. And Ole Miss, again, I'm going to say it again, Ole Miss is number 1 in the country in tackles for a loss, top 2 in the country in sacks. They're one of the top 2 teams in the country in rush defense as well. And offensively, they're one of the top offenses in the country by the numbers. They're one of the top passing offenses in the country, one of the top total offenses in the country, top 5 in scoring offense. So where I'm getting at is Ole Miss has 2 losses. Kiffin said it this week. They backed themselves into a corner by losing to Kentucky earlier this year. That should not have happened. That was definitely one of those, like you asked a few weeks ago, what are some of the flukiest losses of the year? Mm-hmm. That's absolutely one of them. And as far as putting a power rating is concerned, putting Team A on Team B against Team B on a neutral field, in my humble opinion, Ole Miss is one of the 10 best teams in college football. Talent-wise and by the numbers. And they went into Baton Rouge at night, led that entire game until the very end. Like you said, they've only trailed 2 minutes all year. So all of that stuff tells you that Ole Miss is one of the better teams in the country. And then this line tells you that as well, with Ole Miss only being a 2.5-point dog at home. Dude, I've heard some people talking about how they think the wrong teams might be favored in this game, which is crazy to say. But the matchup in this game that will decide it will be what you just said a minute ago. Georgia went into Austin, Texas, and punked Texas, and the Georgia D-line punked the Texas O-line. That was the difference in that football game. Georgia's offense did not play well at all against Texas in that game. They capitalized on a lot of those turnovers that Georgia forced deep in their own territory. They gave their offense a short field. That was where almost all of their points came from, was from their defense.
Yeah.
Can Ole Miss hold up against Michael Williams and that Georgia defensive front? That will be the key. Now, I think the difference is Ole Miss last year when they went to Athens, after that game, Lane Kiffin publicly talked about, and he's talked about it multiple times since, that they revamped their entire roster, how they recruit, and the type of players that they go after because of that Georgia and Bama game last year. But specifically the game in Athens where they got just wrecked in Athens last year. He said, we can't compete at a national championship level or an SEC championship level unless we get more length on the perimeter on both sides of the ball, more physicality on both sides of the ball, and specifically, we've got to get better on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Three of those four, check. Length and athleticism on the perimeter on both sides of the ball. Defensive line, again, lead the nation in sacks, tackles for loss, havoc, all of that, check. Offensive line, they've got bigger, but I don't know how much better they are. The numbers tell you they're not much better. Their Ole Miss is as bad as I think the Lane Kiffin team has been at running the football. They're not going to run the football against Georgia. In my opinion, a run play is a borderline wasted play against this Georgia defensive front going into this game. Ole Miss has the goods, man.
Unless Bentley can get to the edge.
That's true. That's a good point. Henry Parrish probably being out in this game sucks.
Yeah.
For Ole Miss, running back. He got hurt against Arkansas again. But you're right. The speed, because we saw Alabama with the speed get to the edge against Georgia, and that really hurt them in that first half. And Dart is very mobile. He's extremely more mobile than Carson Beck is.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Ole Miss can get, maybe some ends around with the wide receivers and put them out in space, or quick screen passes, that are basically run plays.
Agreed. But to beat a Kirby Smart defense, you need a quarterback, a good trigger man that can make throws down the field in the explosive passing game, and you need receivers that can go get the football. Again, check with Ole Miss in that. And then you've got to have an elite play caller. Ole Miss has that as well. And the last part is you've got to be able to hold up on the line of scrimmage. Ole Miss can do that on the defensive side of the ball this year, unlike last year. Also, Georgia ran all over Ole Miss, and they had 300-plus yards rushing in that game last year against Ole Miss. Georgia is, I think, either 14th or 15th in the Southeastern Conference this year, guys, in rushing. They are not running the football well. I would imagine that they're going to try to run it a little bit. Nate Frazier, the freshman, ran pretty well against Florida. He's a good-looking freshman. I don't know what ETN. I know he's kind of questionable for the game, but I don't know if he's going to play or not, but it sounds like he probably is going to try to give it a go in this one. But I think Ole Miss defensively can hold up fine here. It just is going to come down to, can they give Jackson Dart time? But I also think that the difference between Texas and Ole Miss going into this game, Ole Miss last year, after that game, everything this year, this is the game they circled before the year started. Everything that they did in the offseason geared toward this specific game and this specific opponent. And then you throw on top of it that Ole Miss is in a must-win, have-to-win, back against the wall situation here at home. If Ole Miss has the majority of their starting lineup playing, because if you haven't seen it yet, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss released their injury report. And if you know Lane Kiffin, he is the king of Twitter troll, and the king of just troll in general. The faking injury stuff and all of that everybody's been harping on against Ole Miss. One of Ole Miss's accounts, not their main Ole Miss account, but one of their main accounts that releases highlights and stuff, was, I think, even trolling Ole Miss in that injury report that they released. Because Jordan Watkins, for example, that had over 200 yards receiving last week, not at one point had shown any injury whatsoever.
Yeah, doubtful.
And they've got him listed as doubtful.
You can't fake injuries if everybody's listed as questionable or doubtful.
Right. They've got 26 or something listed on the injury report as questionable or doubtful. So I'll say this, though. If Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins and all those guys are not playing, I'm not taking Ole Miss in this game.
Yeah.
But I like Ole Miss to win this game. I'm not giving it as a best bet yet because I do want to see if those guys are playing.
Okay.
I'm not sitting here today and giving it out as a best bet, not knowing that some of their best players are playing or not yet. I think they're going to play. I think we'll know Saturday. They're an underdog at +2.5 right now. I don't care if it goes to pick, whatever. I like Ole Miss in this game. I think they've got the goods. I don't think that this Georgia team is just so much better than Ole Miss, and the numbers and the metrics all tell you that.
Yeah.
That's, like you said, Lane Kiffin versus Kirby Smart. Am I worried about that? Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
That worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, Ole Miss, by all the numbers, And the play on the field up to this point thus far this year tells you that they can absolutely win this game, and I think they will.
Yep. I'm not sure I would take the plus 2.5 right now. I'm kind of with you. I mean, you've done a good job convincing me. I will tell everybody a couple weeks ago, I live in Indiana, so we get early lines on games, and I took Ole Miss plus 4.5, kind of just not knowing what would happen. And it's moved to 2.5. So I think I'm going to stick with it, obviously. But man, Kirby Smart scares the heck out of me. And trusting Lane Kiffin in a big game scares the heck out of me. But I like what Kirk Herbstreit said in the Georgia-Florida game that he was calling. And he said, this Georgia team, because they're a lot of inexperienced guys, really young guys, except for Beck, and he's playing terribly. They need, and Kirby needs them to be in a position where they are doubted, like that Texas game where they were anywhere from 3 to 5 point underdogs. If they're favored by 14.5, like they were against Florida, or favored against Kentucky, or all these other teams, they come out and they underperform. He needs them to be doubted. Again, they're road favorites again. I don't know if Kirby can use what anybody's saying in the media yet and kind of, again, spout off like, they didn't give me a chance. So I'm kind of with you there. I'm going to stick with the plus 4.5 for Ole Miss. I'd love to see it get to 3 again. You could take Ole Miss. That would be really nice. But yeah,
if I find out all the guys are playing and it's still plus 2.5, plus 3, I may take him plus 3.
Yeah,
75% on that, and the other 25% on sprinkle on the money line.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's get to the game everybody wants to talk about. Alabama at LSU at night in Death Valley, 7:30 Eastern. LSU is 3-point underdogs right now at home. This is the 9th consecutive meeting between Alabama and LSU in LSU, where Alabama has been the favorite. LSU hasn't been favored at home against Bama since 2006. But Alabama,
before Nick Saban.
Yes, Alabama hasn't exactly been a road juggernaut. It's lost 2 straight and 2 against the spread away from home, obviously against Vandy and Tennessee. The Tide haven't lost 3 straight road games straight up since 2006, that same year. You got to go back to year 2000 for their last 3 games straight up and against the spread road losing streak. So since 2020, LSU 6-3 straight up. 6-2-1 against the spread as home dogs. That's tied for the second most straight up wins as a home dog. And at Notre Dame and LSU, Brian Kelly is 14-6 straight up when playing at home off a straight up loss. At home, Brian Kelly is also 16-2 straight up on extended rest in his coaching career. I think you would agree with me. Garrett Nussmeier has the potential to have a field day against this inexperienced Alabama secondary. I mean, we're not exactly talking about murderer's row as far as passing attacks that Alabama's faced this year. I mean, gosh, is the best that they faced this year Carson Beck?
Yeah, it's Carson Beck in Georgia.
He's not exactly lighting the world on fire, right? I mean, they faced backup quarterback at Wisconsin, Byron Brown at USF. He was supposed to be really good this year, missing countless wide receivers.
Yeah,
Missouri with the backup quarterback.
LSU and Ole Miss are the 2 best passing attacks in the Southeastern Conference, and that's 2 of the best passing attacks in the country.
Yeah. LSU side of the ball, too, I'm not sure they can run the ball at all. I mean, they're below ranked 100 in running the ball. I don't know how they can have such a great passing attack and then be so weak at running the ball.
They're the one team that's ranked behind Georgia in running the football. Like I said, Georgia, I think, was 15th in the SEC in rushing, and LSU 16th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, LSU defensive side of the ball, obviously, you were high on Blake Baker in the offseason big time, and you could just tell by watching the play on the field that he's definitely improved the defense. They get 2 weeks to prepare for, probably a healthier Jalen Milroe running the ball. Obviously, they're not going to be caught off guard like they were against A&M and Marcel Reed. Kind of the same thing where I said, South Carolina had 2 weeks to prepare, basically a whole week to prepare for Marcel Reed, and they probably used that to their full advantage. But I don't think LSU is going to be caught off guard this week. Obviously, they faced Milroe last year, and he tore him up last year, but that was a different defense, we'll be honest.
And I think Alabama's going to not necessarily run they're going to try. I would imagine they'll
Yeah.
try to run the read option. They should after what they watched Texas A&M do. But
Yeah.
Milroe in the run game is a little different than the way that Alabama has used him in the run game last year and this year. It's different than the read option. They do that a little bit, but it's more in the QB power run game, speed option type stuff out of shotgun, QB sweeps, and obviously when the play breaks down in the passing game, him taking off running. It's a little different than how Texas A&M did it against LSU.
Yeah, I think the big question mark will be the Alabama running game, to which you famously said a couple weeks ago that Alabama found themselves against Missouri.
Well, I think that what you saw in that second half, that's what Alabama wants to be. It is. That's what this team wants to be. I don't know if that's what
might be what Alabama wants to be. Is it what Nick Sheridan wants to be?
Exactly. And I'm wondering again, in that second half, did it convince them like, okay, yeah, I've got this massive offensive line, I've got these two legit tailbacks, and I've got a great athlete at quarterback. We should be running the football more. Again, they don't have to go all of a sudden turn into a, 75% run, 25% pass. Like truly every offensive coach would love to be as balanced as possible. And that's what they should be. They should be balanced. It should be closer to 50-50. And if they run the football well, and they have success running the ball in this game, in any other game, but especially in this game, that's going to open up what Alabama has been better than any team in the country the last 2 years up until the last couple of weeks, which is the explosive passing. Well, really the last 4 or 5 years, pretty much since Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Tua, even those days. Like even Milroe kept it going last year.
Yeah.
The shot plays have been a huge part of Alabama's offense for a long time.
And LSU's secondary is extremely vulnerable to that.
Correct. Like, Alabama's secondary is better than LSU's secondary, but neither one of these secondaries are great by any means at all. And both of these secondaries can be had. I do think Bama's secondary has improved a little bit throughout the year, but they also, again, you alluded to it. That's great that they're improved against Drew Pine, or Tennessee hasn't thrown the ball against anybody all year. South Carolina hasn't thrown the ball really well this year. This is a different animal with these receivers for LSU in this passing game with Nussmeier. If Alabama's going to stop LSU's passing game, we saw Texas A&M in that second half. That defensive line started getting pressure on Nussmeier. What is Nussmeier? He is a pocket passer, just like we talked about with Beck on the last segment here with the Ole Miss deal. If you can get pressure in Nussmeier's face, he's going to put the ball in harm's way, and your defense will have an opportunity to get your hands on the ball and get some picks. You have Pickett. He's going to throw you 2 or 3.
Yeah.
He's done it. He did it against South Carolina. He did it last week at Texas A&M. South Carolina, Texas A&M, what do those two teams have in common? Great pass rushers and a great defensive line that gets after the quarterback.
I think he did it at home a couple times against Ole Miss.
Yeah, again, Ole Miss.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, one of the best teams in the country, tackles for a loss and sacks.
And they got one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the country, but Garrett Dellinger is not going to be playing in this game at guard.
Right.
So they're going to have a replacement there. So you got to get pressure up the middle on him.
And they can. Alabama's shown this year. That's honestly where they've gotten more pressure this year has been more in the middle of the deck. LT Overton's been the one, defensive tackle, defensive end for Alabama, has been the one doing that more.
Yeah.
Their left tackle, Will Campbell, PFF talks about it all the time and stuff. He's hardly given up any QB pressures and sacks all year. Dylan Stewart's really the only one from South Carolina that was able to do that. But on the other side, they have on the right tackle, on the right side of the line, they've given up a little bit. But that's the key, man. They've got to get pressure on Nussmeier. I have no idea if they can or not. Alabama has to run the football and be balanced on offense. And for Alabama to win this game, they have got to limit the mistakes. That includes penalties. That includes turnovers, dumb mental mistakes that they continuously have been making on the road, dating back to the Nick Saban era since 2020, man. They were 2021 until now. Going into the Missouri game, Alabama was 111th in the country in penalties. Combined 2021, 2022, 2023, and all the games so far played in 2024. If that stays and happens Saturday night in Baton Rouge, they're going to lose. If they got double-digit penalties for 100-plus yards, yeah. You can't go into Baton Rouge and to Knoxville in these big-time environments against these really good football teams and expect to win games when you've got over 100-plus yards and penalties.
Yeah.
So what do you got in this one, man?
Well, what do you think? Kalen DeBoer versus Brian Kelly. I mean, it's no secret. I'm not a Brian Kelly fan. Do not like Brian Kelly. Love Kalen DeBoer. But they're both great football coaches. And the fact that I think we read it, was it either last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about Brian Kelly. I don't think he's lost a home night game since he's been at LSU.
Nope.
I'm not sure. He said he's only lost that one home game
to
Tennessee when they played at 11 a.m. local time.
Yep. So, and to be fair, I mean, they haven't played Georgia at home. Ole Miss this year was their best opportunity for that to happen, and they ended up pulling it out in overtime.
Yeah.
And obviously Alabama a couple years ago, that game also went overtime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Kalen DeBoer, he's another one, man, with more time to prepare. He's been really good. He hadn't lost that many games, period, in his 4 years as a head coach. But just like we said going into Tennessee, just like we said going into this one, he hasn't had a lot of big-time road environments like Baton Rouge at night and Knoxville at Neyland Stadium, and it showed that last time at Neyland Stadium. Did they learn anything from that?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
So picks of the game. I'm going to call out the 2024 Alabama Crimson Tide here. Okay. And I hope they prove me wrong. I don't think that this team has the makeup, the mental fortitude, the guts, whatever you want to call it, to go into Death Valley at night and come away with a W. Okay. That's just kind of from what I've seen this year. I don't think they could do it. Since I would rather not see Brian Kelly with a victory and LSU win, I'm going to be rooting for you here, but I'm going to take LSU +3. And I hope this turns out for you just like it did me when you took A&M -3 in week 1.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Alabama 2-point win here. Let's go.
Yeah, like a 31, like a 30 to 28 type win.
Give me a 32-31 revenge game in overtime, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest.
Is this one of your call outs where you get a 5-star on the Tide, or you're going for him, or what?
No, man. I haven't seen anything from this team that tells me that at all. I would love to.
What do you think about what I said, which is the makeup, the mental fortitude, all that stuff?
Yeah, you're
right.
You
were talking about it with the penalties.
Absolutely. There has been nothing that this team has shown in the bigger road games over the last few years that would make you think that they're all of a sudden going to go into Baton Rouge at night and just give us a vintage Nick Saban type Alabama performance.
I keep going back to it though with DeBoer 2 years ago. Went into Oregon, right, with Washington.
Yep.
He's faced some tough environments, but yeah, they've got to prove it.
Agreed. I'm not going to chicken out here. I'm going to give a bet on this game. Not a bet, sorry. I'm going to give a pick on this game. I'm going to shock everybody here, and I'm going to take Alabama 31, LSU 28.
All right, I'll take the push. There.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little Florida, Texas real quick. Huge game in the SEC, right? Huge game. No. Texas should win this one. The 21.5-point favorites.
Yep.
Aiden Warner is looking to be starting. We don't know what's going on with DJ Lagway. Billy Napier, all he said was, it's good to see DJ being able to practice, right? That doesn't really tell you much. I didn't even look at the SEC injury report.
He's questionable.
Questionable. Okay, so he's got more likely chance to play than Jordan Watkins, apparently. So Texas, though, I mean, this is one of their marquee home games that the SEC gave them in the year. So Florida, though, they've got to be reeling. But I've got a question for you: is this Billy Napier's last stand?
Every week, man. Every week. Dude, it's just a shame, man, that Montrell Johnson's hurt for Florida. Again, questionable again. Mertz goes down. Then Lagway goes down. Dude can't catch a break. I will say, though, that they showed some promise there with Lagway a couple of games in a row before Georgia, and then early on in that Georgia game, I think you talk to a lot of people, man. A lot of people believe that if Lagway doesn't go down, they may win that game against Georgia. There's no way of knowing that, but there was, a lot of people believe that. They believe that. Yeah. So I believe that no matter what, especially if they have a third string quarterback, man, that's playing the rest of the way, I would imagine that as long as Lagway stays at Florida, that I use the reference of Jimmy Chitwood from Hoosiers, that when he walked in there with Gene Hackman, and he told everybody that coach stays, I stay, coach goes, I go.
Yes, sir.
If Lagway states that he wants Billy Napier as his coach, I think they give him another year.
Yeah.
So as far as this game, though, awful, awful, awful spot for the Gators. They threw the kitchen sink at their bitter arch rival, the Dogs, in the cocktail party last week. Had an absolute physical war in that game. And key players got injured and banged up. Texas was chilling at home, resting up, getting right, getting healthy during their bye week. And now they welcome SEC, big brand. I know Florida hasn't been very good, but still, it's a big brand in Florida and the Gators from the SEC coming to Texas. They'll be reared up, ready to go for this one. I've got a best bet in this game.
Bring it.
I took Texas at minus 21 at minus 115 odds, is what I took them at.
Okay.
It's listed at 21.5 right now, but I took it at 21 at 3 touchdowns. I'm one of those that I know you don't like doing it, but I'll risk another, a little bit more juice to get that key number there.
Okay.
I wished I knew for sure if Lagway was playing or not. But either way, I think this Texas offense, Sark, 2 weeks to prepare. I think they want to get right in this game with this offense with Texas. I think the offense rolls. I thought about taking Texas's team total. I think their team total was like 33.5. I think they get 34 plus in this game. But I like
this line. I feel like this line is set as if Lagway's not going to play. So if he plays, I think it'll drop a little bit because, neutral field power rating, they got Texas by 15. So, 2.5, 3 points for home field, 17.5, 18 points. So I think you'll see it drop a little bit. You might get a little bit of EV there. So, how about Colorado at Texas Tech? Texas Tech home dogs plus 4.5. Dion coming off a bye. Shadur and Travis Hunter, both Heisman candidates this year. Will the tortillas be flying there in Lubbock?
Oh, they always are flying, baby. When that opening kickoff, they kick that game off, there'll be tortillas flying everywhere.
Will they be flying at the end of the game?
I don't know, man. Texas Tech is about as trash as it gets in pass defense. They're awful. They don't sack the quarterback.
This has a chance to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, they don't sack the quarterback. They don't get in the backfield and create havoc. They don't have a lot of tackles for a loss. They don't create pressure on the quarterback. So if that's the case, and Shadur is just allowed to stand back and survey the field with those freak receivers that they've got all over the field for Colorado, it'll be a long day for Texas Tech's defense.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I do think that Texas Tech with Baron Morton and Taj Brooks, who might be the best tailback in the Big 12, I believe they can have some success too. So, there might be a lot of points put up in this game. Colorado, again, has played much better defensively down the stretch here in this season.
Yeah.
So, if I had to make a pick in this game, Texas Tech is one of those teams, again, their home loss record has been pretty ridiculous under McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
Almost said Jerry Maguire again. Under Joey Maguire. They've been really good at home. But right now, man, I'm not going against Colorado right now. I think Colorado wins this game. I don't know if they cover, but I think they win the game.
It's definitely hard. I mean, I've made a couple bucks on Colorado the past couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They got the bye week.
Yep.
CFP rankings came out. They're number 20. Obviously, I think it's in this team's makeup to be feeling themselves a little bit. The Red Raiders, since 2005, as a home dog of more than a field goal, are 17-8 against the spread.
There you go. Yeah.
Over that same span, obviously we're talking almost 20 years here. Colorado's the least profitable road team. And since Dion's taken over, save for the UCF game and, who else they play on the road? Arizona, who, Arizona's, if you look at Colorado's wins now, they're not exactly holding up very well.
Nope.
Arizona kind of just falling apart. UCF, kind of the same thing. Kansas State playing on the road, they lost to Kansas State, but I mean, that's just kind of I don't know. I don't know what to think of Colorado. I'm going to take Texas Tech plus 4.5. Give me the points of the home dog. It may be halfway through the first quarter, and I may be regretting that. I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, the thing that scares me the most, man, is Texas Tech's pass defense. That's what I was looking down just now to see how bad it really was. They're 132nd out of 133 teams.
Okay, well, you might have me thinking about cashing out this bet here. So
again, Texas Tech can
might take the over.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say, there's going to be some points scored in this game.
Yeah.
There's going to be some fireworks in this one.
Yeah. All right, let's head down to Bloomington, one of our favorite cities. Old Nick's English hut down there. Michigan at Indiana. This is the first game of the season where Indiana's kind of taken on, that helmet we're talking about. Looking across the line, seeing that wingtip helmet. This isn't the same Michigan team we've been talking about because the Hoosiers have not been favored to beat Michigan in any football game since 1968.
Ooh.
43 straight times Michigan has been favored against the Hoosiers. And now you got a complete flip of the script. I think in the summertime, this game was 13.5 Michigan. It's now 14.5 Indiana. I took them Sunday minus 13.5. I mentioned it on our Monday episode. Indiana's still undefeated. They've won their past 8 games straight up, obviously, and against the spread. 8-0 ATS streak, longest in the country. The only teams to be undefeated on that long of an ATS win streak since 2000. Okay, you got the 2002 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They started off 8-0. Ton of really kind of luck of the Irish wins. Week 9 or game 9, they lost to Boston College like they always do. 2019, Ohio State finished 12-0, lost to Clemson in that awesome Fiesta Bowl where Trevor Lawrence ran wild. 2024 Indiana. So they're keeping really good company here. Like I said, I already took them minus 13.5. I just, I think they're actually going to crush Michigan. And then they got a bye week. So before Ohio State, if the Ohio State game was next week and they were looking ahead to that a little bit, okay, it's a different story, but they got 2 weeks to prepare for Ohio State after this.
Yeah, and I think even if Ohio State was next week, I do not think that Indiana is overlooking, and Coach Siggs and this bunch would even remotely be flat in this spot against, like you said, the brand defending national champs. Siggs before the year called out Purdue, Ohio State, and Michigan there at the when he was introduced to the fans at the basketball game.
He might go 3 for 3.
Yeah, look, if I have no idea if they can or not, man, but if they can win this game, if they can name their score, they'll do it. They'll try to win this game as much as they possibly can if they actually can do it.
They've got quarterback Juju Lewis.
There. Recruit Juju Lewis will be there for this game. But matchup-wise, dude, we know what Michigan's going to do. They're going to run the football. They don't have a quarterback. And Davis Warren played a little bit better last week against Oregon. I mean, for Michigan this year, quarterback play. He did play a little bit better. But Indiana's number 2 in the country. Number 2 rush defense in the country right now. So, and they've played some teams that run the football well. Like I know their schedule, like everybody was like, who they played. Well, Indiana has played some teams that do run the football well. Washington runs the football well with Jonah Coleman. Michigan State can run the ball. And so we know Michigan's going to try to run the rock. Indiana defends it well. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of it, Will Johnson, All-American corner for Michigan, did not play last week against Oregon. Their other corner didn't play last week against Oregon. So they're questionable again this week. Who knows if they play or not. Even if they do play, good luck trying to stop this Indiana offense and this Indiana scoring offense, which is number 2 in the country behind Miami. I don't disagree, man. I think that if Indiana can limit the mistakes, they don't make a bunch of mistakes so far. If they just do what they've done all year, they can name their score in this game.
Yep.
They just do what they do. They can name their score in this game and win like they've done all year. Indiana is number 1 in the country in scoring margin at plus 27.3 points per game. That's what they're averaging, beating their opponents by. So I haven't seen anything from Michigan that tells me that that's not going to be more of the same in this game.
Right. Let's talk a little hokey high. Lane Stadium. Lane Stadium hosting Clemson this week off of a loss against Louisville. Clemson coming in as 6.5-point favorites. against the Hokies. It's a shame this isn't a night game in Lane Stadium. We've been talking about this one for a couple months now. We thought Clemson would, be in the top 10 coming in, but still a ranked team coming in. Looks like Kyron Drones is going to play. Virginia Tech catching points at home. It's a 3:30 kickoff. Stadium's still going to be rocking.
Yep.
By halftime, it's going to be dark there, so you get under the lights a little bit. And gosh, I mean, I like the Hokies in this spot.
Yeah, Virginia Tech does some things that I think can absolutely cause problems for Clemson. They're deep. I mean, Virginia Tech's one of the best year in, year out, and they still are, at getting pressure on the quarterback, sacking the quarterback. They've got the ACC's leader in sacks, and Powell Ryland, defensive end that transferred in from Duke. I think they're going to be able to get after Klubnik. I mean, they do that every game. Mm-hmm. Virginia Tech's biggest issue is stopping the run. So it worries me a little bit with Phil Maffa running the football, and Clemson just running the football in general. Against him worries me a little bit. But Kyron Drones, I think he's 100% healthy for this game. It's a shame he couldn't play last week against Syracuse. I think that game goes overtime with a backup quarterback. I think if Drones plays in that game, they win that game. But they were playing really good football on both sides of the ball going into that Syracuse game. And like I said, Drones, Tootin, their tailback, who's one of the best tailbacks in the ACC, didn't play in that game either. They're both expected to be a go against Clemson here. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the crowd. It will be. It's of course sold out. They're doing the stripe thing where one section wears maroon, the other section wears orange. So they'll be fired up for Clemson. I don't disagree. I think they're catching too many points. I think with that, again, a line like that at a key number sitting at 6.5, they're baiting you to try to take Clemson. They're fine with not giving you Clemson at a touchdown or whatever. Yeah. So I don't disagree, man. I don't have a best bet in this game, but if I did, I would take the points with Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech's a little bit like South Carolina where, I mean, they're probably, 4 or 5 plays away from being 9-0. Yeah. And, you still got to win the games on the field. They still find ways to lose them. Yep. They are catching 6.5 points. I'm taking Virginia Tech plus 6.5. Okay. I know Dabo. I don't think Dabo's ever lost to Virginia Tech. I think he's 6-0 straight up, and I think he's 5-1 against the spread against the Hokies. I just think they come out, and obviously, they're ticked about that loss against Syracuse last week, and probably just ticked overall about how this season has gone and how they've lost some really, close nail biters. Clemson really just hasn't shown me anything. Obviously, they were just pounding, teams into oblivion until they actually played one that was capable of doing anything to them. And Louisville really exposed a lot of things, and they exposed them in, Death Valley. So I just think going on the road after that, I know Dabo will want to wash the taste out of their mouth. I don't think they can get it done by at least a touchdown. So I'm going to take Virginia Tech plus 6.5.
I like it, man. And one thing to keep an eye on here too is Clemson's got a lot of young, talented players on both sides of the ball in this team. You just alluded to it. They haven't played anybody at all worth a piss on the road.
Yeah.
If this game's close in that second half, you know how Blacksburg can be.
Yep.
So just something to keep an eye on there. If Clemson jumps out to a little bit of a lead, you kind of take the crowd out of it a little bit. But I think that's a good bet, man. The plus 6.5. I may ride with you on that later on in the week.
Yeah. Let's talk a little Holy War. 10:15 Eastern on ESPN. BYU at Utah. BYU's favored by 3.5. They've been listed as a favorite 13 times versus Utah since 1993. They are 2-11 against the spread in those games, and they lost their last 4 against the spread and against Utah. BYU, they're undefeated and on extended rest. That's not always a positive for them. Really not always a positive for any team in general like that. Teams in their 9th game or later, undefeated, on a full 2 weeks rest, are just 4-12 against the spread since 2020. Crazy stat here that I saw. I think props to Evan Abrams on Action Network. Utah needs 1 pick six this season to set an NCAA record for most consecutive seasons with an interception return for a touchdown. 21 seasons in a row.
Wow. That's nuts.
Give me your thoughts on this game.
BYU, look, Utah has been awful in Big 12 play. awful. I mean, Arizona has one conference win. They're second to last in the conference, and their only conference win was on the road at Utah and beat them by double digits. Utah's fired their offensive coordinator. Utes go on the road and lose at Houston. And I know a lot at that time, you're like, what an awful. And then Houston turns right around and beats Kansas State. Willie Fritz has Houston playing really good football right now, significantly better than anybody in the country thought that he'd be doing at this point in the year with how bad that roster is.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get caught in a trap here, but doesn't this just seem like a Kyle Whittingham special? It seems like it. That
it does.
This spot here
it seems like a Kyle Whittingham special. Like he's gonna, first time playing BYU at home in a while, and also just you're kind of getting the feeling. I don't know. I am that Whittingham, if they lose this game, he might be close to hanging it up. This might be his last year. I know they haven't said anything, but
yeah,
he's getting up there. I don't know.
He also strikes me as the guy though too, the man that may he don't want to go out this way. Because obviously it was not expected for them. Like he really liked this team and this roster, and obviously the stuff with Cam Rising really hurt. But Utah's defense absolutely can keep them in this game, and I could see Utah mucking this thing up, and this being exactly what it's called, the Holy War.
Yeah.
One of your just bitter, awesome rivalries between these two teams. I think it's a really close game either way, man. So that line obviously reflects that.
Yeah.
I really liked Utah, honestly, at +4. I haven't laid anything yet, but now you said now it's down to 3?
3.5.
3.5?
Yep.
I ain't gonna pull the trigger right now, but yeah, I think Utah can win this game.
Yeah.
But I've seen nothing on the field this year from these two teams that makes me believe that. So this is
BYU. They were fortunate to beat Oklahoma State at home.
Yep.
Obviously, a last-second touchdown there.
Yep.
Struggled with Baylor, but again, other than that, they've been taking care of business as a doubted team all year. Now, you flip the script and you put them in as a road favorite against their in-state rivals.
Yep.
How do they live up to that?
Yep. Ranked in the top 10 right now in the CFP committee's rankings.
Utah would love nothing more than just to ruin their Big 12 championship hopes. Or
right.
At least to them.
That's my last point I wanted to make. This is Utah has nothing else to play for. This is their moment of everything they have to play for is to ruin and beat BYU.
I'm talking myself into betting them.
I think I am too. This may make the old Twitter page on Saturday, the old X page on Saturday for some best bets. But this I think this, no matter who wins this game, I think it's a field goal, one possession type game, no matter what.
Okay,
lower scoring.
Yep. You know what time it is?
Is it time to sound the alarms?
You hear that? Hold on. We haven't heard it all year, but hold on. I think I might.
Hey.
It is, folks. It is time to sound that upset alarm meter. I don't know. Upset alarm.
That's what we call production, folks.
Yeah, there you go. Time for upsets. Who we think has a chance to outright upset as an underdog, and you got to be at least underdogs of 4 points. You want to start us off here?
Yeah, I've got one right here that I want to give out. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here with this one, but it's again anybody over 4 points. So I'm gonna be a little bit of a cop out here because this one's 4.5. But I'm gonna put South Carolina on upset alert against Diego Pavia and Vandy, the Doors. South Carolina off that huge emotional win against Texas A&M at night, just like the week prior. A&M won a big game at night against LSU, then had to go on the road and play South Carolina, and they lost.
You called this one before they even played A&M.
Agreed. I said it's South Carolina. Well, I think I texted you and Cole, and I said, can't wait for South Carolina to upset Texas A&M. Huge game, storm the field, all that ended up happening. And I said, and then they got to go on the next week to play the absolute king of being an underdog role, Diego Pavia. He's won 4 games straight up this year as a dog already. Did it again last week on the road as a 7.5-point dog at Auburn. And now he's getting 4.5 points at home, and Vandy's getting 4.5 at home to South Carolina. So I'm putting South Carolina on upset alert. I think it's just a great spot for Vandy to pull off an upset here. I might even have Vandy plus 4.5 against the spread. I guess I probably should if I'm putting South Carolina on upset alert.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my first. I don't have it as a best bet yet, but I think it's a great spot to try to fade South Carolina here.
Okay. What else you got?
And my other one is Virginia Tech. I'm putting Clemson on upset alert in Blacksburg. Okay. I think Virginia Tech has the goods to be able to upset Clemson. If they can slow down the run game at all, and Phil Maffa in this run game against Clemson, I think they can win this game. Okay. And I think that Clemson's going to have a tough time dealing with the overall attack of Virginia Tech's offense with Kyron Drones being back.
Okay. I'm going to put Iowa on upset alert going out to the Rose Bowl on Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern kick. I think they're 6-point favorites. All the metrics and everything tells you that Iowa, should easily cover this number. I mean, I think they're 10 or 11 on a neutral field. Like, that's just, UCLA kind of is getting it dinged for a lot of their early season metrics, but they played really well in the past 3 games. They lost a close one to Minnesota by 4 at home. They went on the road. They beat Rutgers, and then they went on the road and they beat Nebraska. And now you got Iowa traveling from Central Time Zone to Pacific Time Zone. Big Ten teams when traveling from Central or Eastern Time Zone to Pacific Time Zone are 3-8 against the spread this year. So just something to note when you see the Hawkeyes and the Bruins lacing them up on Friday night on Fox. The second one I have is the team that just keeps playing with their food. All season, they're ranked number 4 in the CFP rankings. That's the Miami Hurricanes. I really want to see if Haynes King is going to suit up or not. Everything I'm trying to read online, it looks like he's maybe practicing a little bit, but just nothing has been shown for sure. Miami against Georgia Tech since 2017 is 1-5 against the spread. I think they're favored by 11 in this game.
Yeah, 11.5. It's kind of flirting back and forth.
Yeah. And we've seen them go on the road to Cal and not play well. We've seen them play Duke at home and not play well. Virginia Tech, they were favored by more. They didn't cover that. For Georgia Tech, on the other hand, obviously they've struggled with Zach Pyron at quarterback, but they're 5-1 straight up and 5-0-1 against the spread in their last 6 home games dating back to last year. And they're 3-1 straight up and 3-0-1 against the spread at home versus teams above 500. Only straight up loss in that time was Georgia last year by 8 points.
Yeah,
right?
Going into the Louisville game at Louisville, I want to say that Brent Key was undefeated against the spread against ranked ACC opponents.
Yeah, he's solid as an underdog.
Yes,
so,
yes. Not a bad pick.
Just watch out. I mean, every year November creeps up on us, and you get some ranked teams that are losing. So
yeah, not a bad pick there.
Could be some upsets. So, all right, time to get to best bets. I've already mentioned I've got Indiana minus 13.5. I'm sitting on Ole Miss plus 4.5 from a couple weeks ago. I took Texas Tech plus 4.5. I took LSU plus 3, and I took Virginia Tech plus 6.5. I'm going to add Vandy plus 4.5. You just mentioned them. Vanderbilt 6-0 against the spread as a dog this year. Diego Pavia at home, all that. South Carolina coming off big win last week, going on the road. It's a no-brainer for me. And then the last one I'm going to play is Kansas plus 3. Kansas is 2-6. Iowa State just lost their first game last week. 2-6 team should be a lot bigger underdogs than 3 points against a team that's 7-1, ranked number 17, right?
Yep.
Kansas State, I think, is like 0-5 in one-possession games. They've had a 2-week break since almost beating Kansas State 2 weeks ago, losing that game on a last-second field goal. Lance Leipold, as a home underdog in his career, 16-7 against the spread. And I know it's wishy-washy this year with Kansas because they're playing at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yep.
I just think that they've played a lot better since the beginning of the season. Jalen Daniels is playing a lot better. They've got a good ground game that I think can really test Iowa State. So I'm going to take the Jayhawks plus 3 as a home dog. A couple others I'm thinking about. Duke plus 3.5 It's +3 right now, -110. You can get them at +3.5 and -120 at FanDuel. I think it should be closer to a pick 'em. Somehow Duke has not played bad this season. We saw him be up by 11 against Miami last week. This might be Manny Diaz's best coaching job of his career so far as a head coach, with everything that Duke lost and how, I mean, I think we took him under, right? We look stupid for that. I mean, it's just, it's crazy what he's done. And NC State, obviously, they played well the past 2 games. But I don't think they've exactly lit the world on fire, and they haven't played. I mean, they played Stanford and Cal, right? So, Duke is right there in the triangle. They don't have to travel far. Catching 3.5 points as a road dog, I think they're worth a look. And then I think Arizona State, you can get them at -2.5, -120, but we'll see where it goes. They're favored over UCF right now. Sam Levitt at quarterback. They've won 3 in a row in the games he started. They lost at Cincinnati when Jeff Sims started. Do we really trust Gus Malzahn to go all the way to Tempe and actually put up the fight? I mean, I just don't know if I can trust the Gus Bus doing that. We're talking about teams traveling from the Eastern time zone all the way out west.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. So I'm thinking about Duke +3.5, thinking about Arizona State -2.5, and then, all the other ones I listed. So it is now your floor.
I'm with you on Kansas, man. +3. I like the Jayhawks in this game. You alluded to it. They've been playing good football. They've lost a bunch of one-possession games against some solid football teams. And we just talked about how good Houston's been playing the last few weeks. They beat Utah straight up. They beat Kansas State straight up. They lost 40-something to 14 against Kansas on their home field.
Yep.
And Kansas went last week and followed that up, like you said, on the road in the Little Apple in Manhattan against a good Kansas State team a couple of weeks ago and played them off their feet. So they're playing good football right now. Kansas was supposed to be good going into the year. I love what you said about the run game for Kansas. They've got 2 legit tailbacks. Jalen Daniels, good, running the ball as well. Love Leipold. Love both of these coaches. But Iowa State has not played very well the last couple of weeks, their last couple of ball games. I mean, they struggled against UCF at home. They should have lost that game against UCF at home.
Yeah.
And then they backed that up by losing to Texas Tech.
That scares me a little bit that they're coming off a loss and they kind of want to, Matt Campbell will get them right, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't. Obviously, the line tells you that as well. There's just not a lot that separates these two teams. I'm with you on Kansas +3. I've already given out Texas -21 as one of my picks as well, and I'm going to do it, man. I've got two here that I just saw lines popping up. I'm going to take Utah +3.5. I talked myself into it, man. I'm going to take Utah. This is my Kyle Whittingham's last stand for the year game. I think that, I don't know if they'll outright upset them, but I think either way, this game is coming down. This will be like a 17-14 type of game. Lower scoring, defensive war between these two teams. The holy war, baby. Late Saturday night. Exactly. I love saying that. You know I do. And then I'm taking Indiana -14. There's some 14s out there. I'm going to do it.
Let's go.
Maybe Michigan steps up. I don't know. But I think that everything that you see between these two teams and all the metrics that you see and the matchup between the two teams, I haven't seen anything that tells me that why is Indiana not going to do what they've done to every other single team that they've played this year in this game. So I like Indiana -14. The others that I'm looking at, I am absolutely going to have Ole Miss on Saturday, whatever the line is. If this injury report is what I think it is, if it's a complete troll joke like thing that Lane Kiffin's doing, I will bash him next week on this show for doing that. But I will have Ole Miss on Saturday against Georgia, if it's closer to a pick 'em or whatever the line is, if the majority of their players are healthy. But that's really Boston College -2 at home against Syracuse was another one that I was looking at. And James Madison -16 at home versus Georgia State is another one I'm looking at.
G5 Lance.
That's right. Got to take a little bit more of a look into that one, but that's just simply because this is Georgia State's 4th straight game on the road. 4th straight. And James Madison's coming off a bye. And they're one of the best teams in that conference, in the Sun Belt. So I got to take a little bit of a deeper dive look into that. I might be able to get on board with Virginia Tech with you. I might be able to get on board with Vandy with you. We may have a lot that we match up on come Saturday. Again, go follow us on X at AlwaysTalkBall. And every Saturday morning around 10 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m., 10:30 Eastern, Tyler and I release our best bets for the day. And so we'll do that again on Saturday. So, yeah, that's all I've got right now.
Well, we appreciate you guys listening on Apple, Spotify, watching on YouTube, all that stuff. If you've made it this far in the episode, please hit the subscribe button, follow, like, whatever. Share with your friends. We love it. And enjoy Week 11. Like I said, we're 1 month away from Selection Sunday. So not that much further to go, which means there's not that much football left. So enjoy it while you can. Week 11 is going to be good. We'll be back on Sunday night / Monday morning to talk recap and just talk ball. That's what we do. But until next time.